Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new episode of the Sports Insight with your host Andar Khan. And yes, as you know, we give you information about sports from all across the globe. You guys can surely reach out to us on a social media handle, which is at the rate of Indus News Sports. That basically works both for Twitter and for Instagram. But anyways, we'll go to the headlines first. And yes, from the world of Premier League, Leicester City won against Manchester United 2-1. However, Manchester City is crowned as the 2021 Premier League champions for the third time. And yes, from the world of NBA, Brooklyn Nets finally defeat Chicago Bulls 115-107, while Warriors against the Sun 122-116 on Wednesday. And yes, from the world of golf, host Danny Willett is keen to start off his season after his COVID setback. And yes, from the world of tennis, Andy Murray takes practice court with Djokovic in Rome for the preparations of the French Open 2021. And yes, those were the headlines, and what a big day for definitely when we talk about Manchester City finally crowned as the 2021 Premier League champions for the third time. Yes, we'll surely be discussing this with our global sports correspondent, Rob Harris, who joined us all the way from the UK. Rob, welcome to the show.
Hello, good to join you.
Great. So, Rob, it's a big day. Obviously, when we talk about, if we talk about the game that happened, Leicester City won against Manchester United 2-1 on Tuesday. And obviously, Manchester City is now crowned as 2021 Premier League champion for the third time. So, how did you see the entire season that actually summed up today?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible in terms of the achievement for Manchester City, because perhaps in November time, we thought there was less chance of them winning the title and reclaiming it from Liverpool. When they were so far down the table, they were sort of 5 points off first place even then. And of course, they had those damaging defeats. They lost at home to Leicester, then they lost to Tottenham as well. And the questions were obviously starting to mount around Pep Guardiola's side. Then, though, we saw the resurgence in helped by their squad depth, the fact that they can deploy resources unlike perhaps some of their other rivals, and that of course was helped during this particularly difficult season. It's why Pep Guardiola called it his most difficult of the 3 titles he's won with Manchester City so far, because of course the pandemic has congested the season. There's very little room for breaks. Every midweek is filled with games, it seems, as well as the weekend, so the rest and recovery time is limited, and really they helped to forge this title on that huge unbeaten run, going 21 matches unbeaten, and the winning run, which really helped to sort of push themselves back up to the top of the table, seeing off that brief threat for Manchester United at the start of the year, when 2021 began with Manchester United potentially looking like they could win the title for the first time since 2013, but United fell away. And ultimately, last night I was there inside Old Trafford to see Manchester United losing to Leicester and handing the title to Manchester City. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will take some hope in the fact that, of course, he's had his highest finish, it's looking like, since he took charge of United in 2018. The fact he is on course for a runners-up finish and pushing City to at least 3 games until the end of the season before losing the title. But City really have shown they are now the dominant force in Manchester, whereas once it was the red side of Manchester completely ruling. 5 titles in 10 seasons really confirm Manchester City as the force of English football.
Absolutely. And more interestingly, as you mentioned, you were there. So tell us about the attendance, because that's obviously one of the things that we've discussed earlier as well. Because of the coronavirus situation, slowly and gradually, now things are kind of getting in control, and they're trying to put in a bit of attendance, bit of people, crowd coming. So were there any attendees there?
Old Trafford, all 76,000 seats were still completely empty. And of course, one of the defining features of the game last night was the steel barriers that were reinforcing the stadium. It was 9 days earlier, I was at Old Trafford when Liverpool should have been the visitors. Instead, there was a scene of unrest and violence as The Manchester United fans protested against the Glazer family ownership, protesting against the fact they tried to take them into this European Super League. And of course, they stormed the stadium, some getting into the ground. There was violence. Police were injured. There was flying glass bottles. There were fights as I was sort of there witnessing on the concourse at Old Trafford. Ultimately, that game couldn't take place. What we saw last night was a lot more police there. Police even brought in from Wales to reinforce the numbers. Police horses, dogs ferociously barking to put anyone off from behind new steel barriers, just in case any fans did try to mount another protest attack. But it was completely deserted outside as well as inside. There was only a couple of even attempted protesters that I did see. Perhaps the situation could be different on Thursday night when Liverpool are meant to finally be playing at Old Trafford. 2 games in about 48 hours for Manchester United, because of course they've had to rearrange this Liverpool game. But the crucial thing is fans are due back for the final 2 rounds of the season. So this time next week, we should be talking about fans in the Premier League stadiums. Up to 10,000 are going to be allowed in, up to maximum the quarter of the attendance. So if you've got a stadium over 40,000, you can have 10,000 in. And of course, we will have fans at Wembley on Saturday for the FA Cup final when Leicester play Chelsea. We're expecting more than 20,000 in for that. So gradually, some sort of return to normality with fans coming back as the season ends. And of course, Liverpool finished their reign of champions last night without the fans ever getting to see a trophy celebration. No trophy lift in front of the fans, no trophy parade at all. And now the trophy is heading to the blue side of Manchester, and it'll be presented at the final game of the season in a week and a half's time in front of expected 10,000 fans at the Etihad Stadium.
At least that's a progress. Aside the fact, I totally understand that, fans not being there to see the trophy being lifted. But the important thing is that slowly and gradually things are shaping up, because obviously fans would want to be there, would want to cheer up, and I'm sure there's a lot of frustration amongst people because of this entire coronavirus situation. And yes, I'm so looking forward to the upcoming match, which obviously is Manchester United versus Liverpool. I think it's going to be an interesting take to see how exactly, as you mentioned, that there was already a lot of reinforcements there, because the last time the situation really went bad and went really out of hand. So how do you see maybe this time, because obviously when we look into the in-depth analysis of Manchester United facing Liverpool, the alarms definitely go off.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite an intriguing aspect to Manchester United beating Leicester, losing to Leicester last night. So, of course, Manchester United don't want to be losing any games. They don't want to be handing the title to City. But assume the fact that, of course, City was going to get the 1 win it needed to seal the title in its last 3 games. Manchester United have helped Leicester seal the top 4 place to qualify for the Champions League. And in doing so, made it harder for Liverpool to try to squeeze into the top 4. And that, of course, means you're potentially destabilising a rival. So Liverpool, if they do miss out on the Champions League, they're denied loads of UEFA cash, maybe up to £100 million and more. That means that they've got less to spend in the transfer market as they're coming out of this pandemic impacted period where revenues are already reduced because fans aren't in stadiums. And also then, of course, it's harder potentially to sign or keep players if you're going to be out of the Champions League as well, because they want to be playing against the elite. So while losing to Leicester is damaging in the sense of not wanting to hand the title to your rival, that weakening of Liverpool could be an interesting little subplot to it. And of course, now they do welcome Liverpool to Old Trafford on Thursday. Obviously, Liverpool desperately trying to at least seal a Europa League spot as well, because of course there's a potential they miss out on Europe altogether, which would be quite a fall from being champions last season, and of course winning the Champions League in 2019. So much we've heard about the Liverpool injuries this season. And what we saw with Manchester United last night that is mitigation for losing is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer prioritised a lot of players for this Liverpool game. The fact that they did have to play Sunday, Tuesday and again Thursday. So we did see some younger names in there like Ahmad, who set up Mason Greenwood for the equaliser. Interestingly, was the first time 2 teenagers have combined for a Premier League goal since 2006. We might think something like that might happen more often. So some encouragement from the youth side of United. And then, of course, some older, more established hands got some game time like Juan Mata as well. So it wasn't a full strength United, so that's the side that we'll see against Liverpool. And of course, for Jurgen Klopp, it's not only about challenging for Europe, but trying to obviously begin the rebuilding of confidence, of course, heading into next season as well.
Right, and if we talk about Manchester United, they've actually lost 5 games this season on Old Trafford to begin with. So what would your prediction be in terms of when they face Liverpool on Thursday?
Yeah, it was a terrible start for United at Old Trafford. I think it's their worst start to a home season in about 40 years. And I was there when Tottenham crushed them 6-1 in October. And we thought that this could be a really difficult season for Manchester United. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, will he survive? And of course, there was that crashing out of the Champions League as well, losing to PSG at Old Trafford. I was there in early December. So we thought then, how are things going to look for Solskjaer? Now, though, he is ending the season with a Europa League final, so he can deliver the first trophy in 4 years to Manchester United. Quite an unusual title drought, something not seen since the 1980s, since the early days of Alex Ferguson's reign. And, they do head into this game, as the favourites now, Manchester United, assuming that they can make the changes that they did intend, and there isn't that weariness through the bodies. And Liverpool are at least mounting for themselves this sort of later recovery in the season, but that damage was really done when they had that series of home defeats in January, February. They lost at home to Burnley, ending their unbeaten record of a few years at Anfield. And as things stand, you'd think Manchester United can do it. They've already sealed Champions League qualification for next season, and that's probably the most important thing really for a team like Manchester United, to be knowing they're going to be in there, particularly when the fans are back next season. I mean, the interesting thing is, does Leicester lock down top 4 as well, along with Chelsea too?
Right. I would also obviously be talking about the top 4, top 5 spot. I just want to have a quick word on the last match that really happened, and obviously Burnley managed to win against Fulham. And now Fulham is obviously on the relegated side, and even if you talk about Fulham, West Brom, Sheffield United. So what's your take on the bottom 3 situation of the Premier League standing?
Yeah, 3 teams that before the season many might have expected to struggle, although Sheffield United less so, because they did so well last season in terms of challenging for a European spot. But all 3 Premier League relegation spots settled with 3 games to go. Hasn't happened before, so perhaps it sort of shows that gulf that does exist there. Fulham will look particularly to some of those near misses in recent weeks, in terms of when they went into injury time at the Emirates, still beating Arsenal, then they conceded, which meant they dropped 2 points. And there were other moments like that as well. But when they were promoted a couple of years ago to the Premier League and got relegated immediately, they spent a lot of money, wasted a lot of money maybe. That's not happened as much this time. So now they have to look at the strategy in terms of what do they do now they're back in the Championship again? How do they rebuild to the future? Do they try to build a squad that can then come up and be kept together, rather than, say, bringing in loan signings and the like, and actually trying to build a team ethic? It looks like, they will stick with Scott Barker. He is admired in the game, and obviously in the sense of Sheffield United, it was just an absolutely bleak season for them. Right. West Brom, Sam Allardyce coming in halfway through the season. It's the first relegation for him as a manager, although he'll point to the fact he's not had a full season. Right. And of course, West Brom will look to some of their great moments, the fact that they did draw at Manchester City even just a few months ago, but ultimately not managing to win those matches against weaker opposition that they need to collect those points.
Right. Well, Rob, thank you so very much for being a part of the show and discussing the world of Premier League. We'll surely have you on board again when it comes to the Champions League final.
Great to join you.
Perfect. So, yes, we were discussing the entire standing, and yes, once again, congratulations to Manchester City for being crowned as 2021 Premier League champions for the 3rd time. And yes, it's going to be a super interesting lineup of matches when we talk about Manchester United facing the upcoming tournament, which is against Liverpool on Thursday. Do not forget to watch that game. It's going to be at Old Trafford, where exactly the riots happened a few weeks ago. But anyways, what we'll do is we'll take a quick break, and once we come back from the break, we'll discuss more world of sports. See you guys after the break. And yes, welcome back from the break. And yes, before the break, we were discussing Premier League and how Manchester City managed to be crowned as the Premier League champions for the third time. But not to forget, we discuss other sports as well, to discuss the world of NBA. Yes, we'll surely be discussing Brooklyn Nets defeating Chicago Bulls 115 to 107 on Wednesday. To discuss more in-depth analysis, we have with us Josh Reynolds all the way from the US. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Glad to be back.
Great. So, Josh, we'll start off with the first match that actually took place. Brooklyn Nets defeating Chicago Bulls. And not to forget, the Brooklyn Nets have been not at the finest of their performances, obviously, because James Harden has missed his 18th game. How do you see their journey so far, and where exactly are they heading?
Yep, it's Brooklyn's. They're still going through it. Last night was a little bit of a different story. They beat a Chicago team that's really struggling. This game was really the Nets the entire way. Zach LaVine for the Chicago Bulls, he had 41 points. Despite his best efforts, it just wasn't enough. Kevin Durant had 21. Kyrie Irving played really well also, but about halfway through the game, he actually took an elbow that took him out of the game, and that kind of became the biggest cause for concern and the biggest story of the night. Coach Steve Nash said that he does not have a concussion. The x-rays came back and they were inconclusive. So whatever that means, my guess is that Kyrie Irving probably misses a game or so.
Right.
But again, this is just the continuing saga for Brooklyn. It feels like they can't catch a break. And once they start to play well, and even though they won last night, of course, Kyrie Irving's out. And so, yeah, they're sliding. And it's exactly what we said. We thought that Milwaukee would catch them in the standings, and that's what happened, winning 2 in a row. They have the tiebreaker on Brooklyn now, but yeah, just despite the win last night, there's still a lot of questions to be answered with Brooklyn.
Right, and obviously in terms of still obviously having their duo, because we haven't really seen the trio gel in yet, but now the duo is also going, because we already have James Harden missing, and now, as you said, that there's major possibility that probably Kyrie would not be a part of the team. So how do you see them? Because if they start strolling down, because that's what I've seen and noticed so far, and I think a lot of fans out there have seen so far, that slowly and gradually there's a deviation that actually comes into Brooklyn Nets, and that kind of hits them really, really hard. So what impact would it cause? Because then there would be no duo for them.
I think it's going to be a big impact. If Kevin Durant has to kind of handle the load for the last few games by himself, granted, they don't play very strong teams. They play San Antonio. They play Chicago again. They play Cleveland. Those are some winnable games that I think they can get by with just Kevin Durant.
Right.
But as of yesterday, there's a rumor now that James Harden may be back as soon as tonight against the San Antonio Spurs. So we'll see. Again, there's a lot of question marks, but that could be a huge development. And if Kyrie Irving is out for the remainder of the regular season for these 3 games, if they're able to get James Harden back and get these minutes in with Kevin Durant, that could be a huge, huge thing and a big tell, and a thing that all NBA fans have been longing for. It's we all want the answer to the same question. Will the Brooklyn Nets be as unstoppable as we think they will be with James Harden back on the floor? And hopefully we get to find out soon.
Right. So if the rumors turn out to be positive, I'm sure a lot of fans out there would surely be happy. But then yet again, they'll still have a duo, because obviously Kyrie would probably be missing a match or two. It all depends on the type of injury and the impact of the injury. But if ultimately happens, we surely want the trio to gel in, to get there where actually the fans want to see them.
You're right. It's kind of crazy to think about that we won't get to see the trio of Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden play most likely until the playoffs start, which is crazy to think about. I know we've talked about it before, but will that work? Will they get their first minutes together, and will they be able to mesh and play well like we hope and like we think that they will be able to? It's going to be very interesting if they end up having to play Indiana or Washington in the first round of the playoffs. They will give them a run for their money. So it will be very, very interesting to see if that trio can be healthy and all be on the court at the same time. And not only that, but will they have success? That's the question we all are wondering and all excited to find the answer to.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's hope it turns out to be well for them, because obviously the fans are waiting for this miracle to happen. We're surely looking forward to that. Let's talk about the next game, which is obviously the Golden State Warriors' victory against Phoenix Suns. And obviously, it's when we talk about them, we surely talk about how Stephen Curry is trying to put in his best. So, how do you think they are heading to, and which direction are they leading the team to?
Golden State is playing and trending in the right direction. Last night was no exception. They have had Utah and Phoenix on back-to-back games. Utah and Phoenix are probably the two best teams in the entire NBA. So for Golden State to play them back-to-back and not only play them well, but to win both games is amazing. Last night against Phoenix, it was the Andrew Wiggins show. We talk about all the time, hey, Stephen Curry, he's going to do what he does. He needs some help. That's exactly what happened last night. Andrew Wiggins had 38 points. He shot 74% from the field, which is just mind-blowing. Did not miss a lot of shots at all. From the very tip-off, it was very clear that Phoenix game plan was, hey, we're going to take Stephen Curry out of the game. We're going to double-team him every single time he touches the ball. And Andrew Wiggins stepped up in a big way. It looked like Phoenix was going to run away with it early, but thank goodness Andrew Wiggins had it going.
But
also got some
that is
Jordan
basically
Poole.
the gelling thing that we talk about. That is exactly the gelling team that we talk about. For instance, we discussed Brooklyn Nets, because you need to have that strategy that if that you're going to be double teams, you need to have that one person who can take the charge from them. And I think you're absolutely right. Andrew Wiggins is actually out there, ensuring that if Steph Curry is occupied and he can't really score, even though obviously he managed to score, but yet again he's out there, representing the team as one.
Yep, you're right. Guys like Jordan Poole, like Draymond Green, he had a triple-double last night. Here's an extremely amazing stat and fact for you. Draymond Green has 30 triple-doubles in his entire career. The Golden State Warriors are 29-1 when he has a triple-double. Right. That just shows how important Draymond Green is to this Golden State Warriors team. If he can dominate the ball like he did last night, they are going to win. They are going to have good things happen. That is a crazy fact, though. 29 wins, 1 loss when he has a triple-double. Right. Something extremely interesting. But yeah, like we said, it's to beat the two best teams in the NBA back-to-back nights. While Stephen Curry, he did not play particularly well. Right. He only had 21 points. He shot 7 for 22. Not ideal, not a typical Stephen Curry looking game. Right. And against Utah, he was 3 for 13 from three-pointers. So the amazing thing, if he is struggling like that and teams are trying to take him out of the game plan, and another guy step up, Golden State is definitely trending in the right direction, and they are not a team that Utah or Phoenix wants to see in the first round of the playoffs.
Absolutely, absolutely. And remembering that Stephen Curry actually scored 49 points in 29 minutes against the Thunder. So I think they're gelling in the right direction and definitely going in the right direction, obviously. But they have a game plan. I hope Brooklyn Nets actually manage to get that game plan. Let's talk about the third match, which I'd love to talk about, which is the LA Clippers defeating Toronto Raptors. How was that entire match as per your perspective?
Yeah, this was a good game. It was the poor Toronto Raptors. They're kind of just in coast mode. They know that their season's over, so they're getting a lot of their bench players minutes. So this was the Clippers the whole way. Los Angeles pretty much dominated the game from the beginning. It was a well-rounded win. A lot of even scoring for the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard had 20 points. Paul George had 16, 18 from Zubats. The Clippers look like they are trending in the right direction as well. Right. They've got a 1-game lead on Denver for that 3 seed, which obviously Denver is really hoping that they can get. But yes, the Clippers, their remaining schedule as well, they play Charlotte, they've got Houston, and then they've got Oklahoma City. So some relatively easy games, although Charlotte is a playoff team. They're going to be in that playoff game in the Eastern Conference. The Clippers, they're looking good, and they just have so much firepower with their superstars of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard.
Right, and Clippers surely are heading in the right direction. So what exactly, or which exactly game are you currently looking forward to in the upcoming playoffs?
Yes, there's going to be some very interesting games here that are going to shape up the seeding, not only in the Eastern Conference but the Western Conference as well.
Right.
It looks like this weekend that we're going to have the play-in tournament, which is going to be awesome. That's what I'm looking forward to most. It looks like they're pretty much set in the Eastern Conference. You've got Boston, you've got Charlotte, Indiana, and Washington. Those are the 4 teams in the play-in for the Eastern Conference. And then in the West, it's going to be very, very interesting. You've got the Grizzlies out in Memphis. You've got the Los Angeles Lakers, who,
Right.
although they won last night, they beat the Knicks. They're still most likely going to have to play in that play-in game, which is absolutely crazy to think about. A team with LeBron James and Anthony Davis will have to play in the play-in game. And then you've got the San Antonio Spurs as well. So the play-in tournament is what I'm looking forward to most. I'm very excited to see how it all shakes out. But if you're going to watch some games, those are the ones to watch this weekend as the playoffs start next week. Crazy, the season's already over.
Great, great. We'll surely look into that. Thank you so very much, Josh, for being a part of the show and discussing the world of NBA with us.
You are very welcome. Thanks, guys.
Great. So that was Josh, and he discussed, obviously, talking about the planes that actually start in the upcoming weekend. So we surely look into that, and there are so many upcoming good games that we surely need to see. But anyways, this was pretty much from the world of NBA. We'll quickly jump into the world of golf. Let's talk about Denny Willett, who actually wants to start this season against his COVID setback, and he's actually hosting the British Masters tournament. Not to forget that he missed out on the Players Championship, and not only him, if I remember, we actually gave information about approximately 4 or 5 different golfers that actually missed this tournament. But right now, he's hosting this tournament, the British Masters, and he actually wants to win this because he wants to make his comeback. And I'm sure if he's hosting it, because I'm sure when it comes to someone hosting the event, he would be a master at that entire perspective, at the entire course. So we'll surely look into that, and we'll definitely, once the tournament shapes up, because it starts from the 12th to the 15th of May, we'll surely be getting into the in-depth analysis and sharing the upgrades on it with you. Anyways, then we'll jump into the world of tennis. Yes, we talk about tennis. Andy Murray actually takes out to practice with obviously Djokovic. It has been an interesting journey for him, and Djokovic and himself are actually basically going through this practice session to ensure that, this is for the French Open 2021. Obviously, Djokovic is a big name. Same goes for Andy Murray as well. Let's hope all goes well. Murray is still working on his injury. He actually went through this groin injury, but now he's much, much better. So let's see how he actually manages, besides the practice session, to actually make his mark. And the French Open actually begins on the 30th of May 2021 in Paris. But anyways, guys, this was pretty much it from the world of sports. If you guys want to reach out to us, you can on our social media handle, which is at the rate of Indus News Sports. That basically works both for Twitter and for Instagram. Till then, take good care of yourself, and bye-bye.